What does it mean to describe something really well? And how can you do that in English? Well, it's not that easy, but we can look at a few examples and pull out some of the things that make a really powerful English description. That's what we're going to focus on in this video. If you have any questions throughout, make sure to put those in the comments. If you haven't already done so, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And now, let's get into the video. What makes a description really vivid? When you hear it, when you see it, someone's telling a story, you're reading a book, what is it that makes it really good, really vivid? Well, it's not one thing. There are a few elements. But I want to spend a little time talking about this. Now, this is generally, I think, useful as part of a foundation in English knowledge. And the example we're going to look at, I'm not necessarily suggesting that you use in everyday spoken English, right? If you use the language that we're going to use or look at in our example in everyday spoken English, you might sound a bit odd. But if you're telling a story, maybe not. That might be much more natural in spoken English. If you're writing something, much more natural, right? So I want to just give you a sense for this. And I've got a description here that I'm going to read, and then we're going to kind of analyze it, okay? So just listen along. It's a very short description of a sunset, basically. But it's not just a sunset. Right? We're adding a lot. I want you to think about, as I read through this, what we're adding exactly. What are the things that make it sound like it does? Okay? Here we go. The sun sank slowly into the horizon, painting the sky with fiery hues of orange and red. The clouds looked like they were on fire, glowing with a warmth that belied the cool breeze that blew against my skin. As the last rays of light disappeared over the edge of the world, the stars emerged like diamonds on a velvet canvas, sparkling and twinkling in the darkening sky. Okay, so that's pretty vivid, right? You can picture a lot of stuff, feel a lot of stuff when you experience that, whether you're reading it or hearing it, right? Well, why? What are the pieces? Maybe first we can take a look at a simpler version. If we were going to kind of not dumb it down, but just simplify it, what might we say? At the end of the day, the sun went down and the sky changed color. The clouds looked warm and the stars came out. So is there anything wrong with that? Is that bad? No, it's not bad. It's clear, right? Straightforward. That's what happened. But we might not experience as much. We might not have the same emotional impression. We don't get as much from that description visually in our imaginations, especially if this is written, right? I like to tell stories, though, and when I tell stories, I try to use more of this type of language because I want people to feel more, right? Of course, you don't want to always say the sun sank slowly into the horizon. Sometimes you just want to say, after sunset. It depends on the situation. So the simplest way to say this would be something like, the sun went down and it got dark. That is the absolute simplest way we could say that. The sun went down and it got dark. But what is it about our example here that makes it kind of vivid? Well, I think first it's the descriptive language that we use, right? We're using language that creates an image. And when you're describing things and your goal is to create an image, you want to use specific words that have images kind of baked into them, if that makes sense, right? Now, you could say the sun went down, but yeah, that's an image of the scene, but a single word that contains an image can make things more visual and add to the imagination. Words like fiery, very clear picture there, right? Glowing, we can picture what that means. Velvet, oh, I can see how smooth it is, and there's that kind of sheen on velvet. Sparkling, twinkling. These kind of make people feel something because they're engaging their senses, right? So if you're trying to describe something really vividly, I'm not saying make it as kind of formal as this. I'm saying think about some of those vivid words you might use which will add to the meaning of your description and grab people, make them feel something, right? Connect more to their senses. We also use, though, figurative language here, which is very interesting. This is where we say not something that's actually there, but we make a comparison, right? We might use a metaphor or a simile. These are to make a comparison to make people picture something or what something is like. If I say it was as smooth as a boiled egg, right? My friend recently lost all of his hair, and I asked if I could touch it, his bald dome, and it was as smooth as a boiled egg. So if I just say it was very smooth, that is not quite as very visceral and vivid as saying it was as smooth as a boiled egg, right? So when we say diamonds like diamonds on a velvet canvas, right? When we use that kind of figurative language, it's not really diamonds. Stars are not really diamonds. It's not really a canvas. But that kind of language makes it pop a bit and can, again, activate people's imaginations. And I think make people, in general, just feel more. People feel more when you use that kind of figurative language, right? You don't have to, of course, but it can be, I think, very interesting. Now, we also are focusing on the senses, which I think is key. I mentioned choosing words that might activate the senses, right? But when you're describing something that has different senses, see if you can include them. It's sort of like listening to the radio is activating only one sense. Watching a documentary is activating two, visual and audio, right? So there's something more immersive about that. Can you create that immersive environment with the language that you choose, right? So the sensation of the cool breeze that belies the warmth, the warmth that belies the cool breeze, a warmth that belied the cool breeze that blew against my skin. So I can put myself in that position and kind of imagine what that would be like. And so this description is not just visual, describing the sun going down over the horizon. It's also activating my imagination about how that might feel in that moment, right? So you're closer to experiencing it yourself. And this could be very simple. You're describing coming home from work and the power's out, and you could say, I walked into my apartment, I unlocked the door, and I was so scared because I couldn't see anything. But then you could say, and I felt prickles moving up my spine, right? And I heard creaks and groans from beneath the floor and from other apartments. And I thought maybe from the corner as well. So adding these layers, it makes it more immersive when you're describing something, right? So I think that's also something to consider, as well as the emotional part. That contrast between the warmth and the heat could be kind of an emotional thing because you have this cold darkness coming, but then this warmth which maybe gives you a bit more of an emotional sense. Now, that's kind of hard to say, right? That depends very much on what you're trying to describe, right? But just if you can, trying to think about your emotional states when you're in that, if you're telling a story, and then adding those things to make the description overall more vivid, more clear, and have a kind of emotional resonance that's going to make it, I think, more interesting and more vivid. Okay? So, those are just a few high-level things that you can think about as you are describing stuff in English. If you have any questions about that, let me know. If you haven't already done so, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also, feel free to check out my free course, Natural English Conversations, in the links in the description.